Once upon a time, in a magical, clean place called New York City, there was an adorable orange orphan cat who only wanted to be loved. No, that's the wrong cat. Wrong cat, get him out of here. That's wrong too. Come on, go get out of here. But he's funny. I like that second one. We should talk about that second one a bit more. He ends up having to go through trials and tribulations to find the family that he so righteously deserves. This little orphan Oliver was animated by another prolific animator at the Disney Studios. But who could have brought such a cute little kitty to wife? Let's find out. Mark Henn was born in 1958 in Dayton, Ohio. As a child, drawing came naturally, and like many Disney animators, Disney animation was a huge influence on his aspirations.
I was at a camp, Indian Guides, which was a YMCA club for boys, and one of the weekend's entertainment was we watched The Reluctant Dragon. Not just the short, we watched the entire feature film. But the thing that struck me was he ends up ducking, he's hiding from the page, and he ducks into an animator's office, which he doesn't know that, but he ducks into this office, and here's Ward Kimball, Norm Ferguson, Freddie Moore. He ducks in their office, he's like, "Hi fellas, do you mind if I hide out in here for a minute?" And they're like, "No, sure, come on in." So, and in that time that he's in the animation office, they show him, you see Norm Ferguson doing some animation with Pluto. They screen on a moviola, they show him the short film, How to Ride a Horse with Goofy. But the thing that really cemented it for me was he walks over to Ward Kimball's desk, and here's Ward Kimball finishing a drawing of Goofy, and he's looking over his shoulder, and he starts saying, "Oh, you mind if I watch?" "No, sure, come on, watch."
Pretty soft for you just making funny pictures all day.
You think so? Well, the first 100,000 are the hardest.
I know who it is now. Goofy. Only 3 fingers?
Yeah, saves time and looks better.
Don't forget that other button. No shoes? Boy, what size are those?
Oh, about 15 and a half.
There you are.
Now let's see how the whole scene looks. Ready? Okay, shoot.
Goofy comes to life and starts dancing around, and I was just, my eyes, my mind, I was just blown away. And to see a drawing, which I love to draw, now come to life, dance around, I was just, wow. And that's when I really got the bug bit.
That's slick, all right.
After high school, Henn originally attended a community school in Ohio. But after a while, he realized he needed to get a more formal art education.
A good friend of mine in high school, if you can believe this, had given me a catalog. In those days, if you were applying to a college, you actually got a physical catalog of everything about the college. So she had given me this catalog. She said, "Here, you might be interested in this." And the Disney animation program at CalArts started in, I think, 74, 75.
Right.
So I got this catalog when I was like a sophomore, junior in high school, and I'm like, oh, I'd love to go here, but I can't. I mean, I'm here in Ohio. How am I ever going to make it to California? And I stuck it in my drawer, in my desk, in my bedroom. Well, after 2 years of college, I realized I really need to get a better art education. So I pulled that catalog out again, and I looked at it, and I said, well, I need to maybe look into this. In the meantime, I had sent portfolios directly to the studio. I sent 3 portfolios to the studio. The first one met with some interest. They said, let's see some more work. The second one, they basically said, stay in school. This is what you need to focus on. And the third one, they basically said,
stop sending us stuff.
Stop sending us stuff. Thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
Don Duckwall was the gentleman in charge of the department, and his his line, which is embedded in my brain, said it wasn't that I was a bad artist, but it was that I probably wouldn't have the artistic talent to travel the narrow roads that our animators travel.
Wow.
I'll never forget that.
I'm going to use that when I'm looking at students' work.
There you go. So essentially, I already had 2 years of college in, and I knew I needed to get to a more of an art school, so I applied to Cal Arts with essentially the same portfolio that the studio had rejected.
Yeah.
I juiced it up a little bit, and lo and behold, the letter came, and I'll never forget it, and I didn't get past the first word, which was congratulations, and it was like, woohoo, I'm going to California, and my dad's face just kind of went, how are we going to afford that?
How much it costs.
How are we going to do that?
In 1980, Mark Henn was hired by Disney Animation Studios and started in the training program where he was mentored by Eric Larson. Not to be confused with Gary Larson, that guy who did all the Far Side comics, nor to be confused with Mitch Larson, who wrote all of this stuff.
When you started at the studio in those days, you went through their training program, which was run by Eric Larson, who was one of the original 9 Old Men. And Eric, you would go in and you would do the first 4 weeks, you would do a pencil test. And then that was subject to review of the board at that time. And if they liked it, then you did another 4 weeks. And after completing 8 weeks, if they were happy with what you were doing, then you essentially, at that point in time, you went one of 2 paths. You either went into cleanup, or you went into with an animator as his rough assistant, rough in-betweener. So I did my 8 weeks, and I didn't know Glenn really well at that point. I knew of him, but he liked my test, so he put in to have me join him as his new rough in-betweener. Because I think some of his other assistants, like Chris Buck and some others, had already moved up the ranks and were, some junior animators at that point. So I actually only had probably 6 months working in Glenn's unit. We finished up the end of production on Fox and the Hound. But once that production, character animation was largely finished, often in those days it was an all hands on deck situation to get the movie finished. So I found myself next stop, I was helping out in effects, doing car headlights for the widow and leaves and different things. They just needed everybody who was available to help out, because effects was one of the last production areas to go through. But I was soon, out on my own, working on, because to get a promotion you had to do another test on your own time and of your own design. And so I started working on a second test, hoping to get promoted up to being an assistant animator. And so within a year, long story short, within a year of starting at the studio, I had gotten my promotion and was, as you said, I was an animator, promoted to animator, yeah.
Henn's first project as a full animator was animating some mouse on Mickey's Christmas Carol.
There was a project that was floating around the studio called Musicana, which was kind of a Fantasia type project. And so there were a lot of different, like Fantasia, a lot of different little stories that were going to be set to music. One of them was Mickey and the Nightingale, which was, set against a Chinese Asian background. But it was Mickey in the starring role, a retelling of that story of the Emperor and the Nightingale. So Musicana, unfortunately, came and didn't go anywhere, but I loved the idea, so I just kind of took my inspiration from that to develop and do a little test of Mickey with that in mind. And Bernie Mattinson, who in the meantime had approached the studio, there was Mickey's Christmas Carol started as a children's album, record, remember those?
Oh,
and
yeah. They called them vinyls.
Vinyls, yeah, they're vinyl now. But anyway, it was a children's album of Mickey's, retelling of the famous Dickens Christmas Carol. And so Bernie had, unbeknownst to me, had approached the studio about developing that as a project, and they said yes. And then the next thing I know, Bernie had asked me and had seen my test. I had gotten the promotion, but they were looking for somebody to, I guess, fill the void of being a Mickey animator.
But you were kind of like the main Mickey animator. I mean, did they make you like the lead?
I was one of the lead animators for that show, yeah.
I mean, you went from like a trainee to the lead on this show, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Grason Ponti writes in his blog, Henn animates a Mickey that is very humble, innocent, and unselfish, using subtle movements, reserved but meaningful expressions, and true warmth to make the audience feel sympathetic for him. It's all very subtle, and every movement and gesture communicates character and has meaning.
2 minutes fast. Well, never mind those 2 minutes. You may go now.
Ha! Oh, thank you, sir. You're so kind.
Never mind the mushy stuff, just go. But be here all the earlier the next day.
I will, sir. And a bah humbug. I mean, a Merry Christmas to you, sir.
After a short stint on the Black Cauldron, for which he animated the scenes with Gertie in his first appearance in the film, Henn was cast as the lead in what our script supervisor would call the greatest Disney animated film, The Great Mouse Detective. And I think he's right. He animated 3 separate characters, the socially inept genius Basil of Baker Street, the kind and skittish Dr. Dawson, and the sweet Olivia. Grason Ponti writes, Mark's work on Basil is a more refined version of the sincere, character-driven animation he did with Mickey 3 years earlier. For inspiration, he extensively observed and sketched the actors of Basil and Dawson recording their lines, and a lot of the poses and attitudes from the recording session make it back in the final film. In great contrast, Basil is confident and courageous, while Dawson is cautious and laid back in nature. I love how the character relationship and personalities of the character are so extensively defined by Mark. They're completely believable, and their gestures really give us a glimpse into what they are feeling, but in a subtle, natural way.
Mr. Basil, I need your help, and...
All in good time.
But you don't understand. I'm in terrible trouble.
If you'll excuse me.
No. Now, see here. This young lady is in need of assistance. I think you ought to listen.
Hold this, please, Doctor.
Of course, but...
Good.
Wait just a moment. How the deuce did you know I was a doctor?
A surgeon, to be exact. Just returned from military duty in Afghanistan. Am I right?
Yes. Major David Q. Dawson.
Such a good movie. It don't get the respect it deserves, I tell you what, people. This is also the film where Henn refined his skill for turning out feat of animation very quickly, something that Henn has come to be known for. In Disney's next film, Henn was cast again as the main character, which seems to be a theme with him. He animated the adorable main character, Oliver, and his eventual owner, spoilers, Jenny. This is a significant film because it marks a gradual change in his style over the years, Grason writes, where instead of having a lot of round, caricatured shapes, a lot like, let's say, Fred Moore's style, emphasis on lines and distinct, spaced-out poses, as in much of his earlier work, his style became more smooth and drawn out in a way that is very light, but is very powerful in many ways, like the style of Ollie Johnston. Oliver in particular has one of these new components used well that would later become vital to Mark's work: importance on light, sensitive physical contact, and touching between 2 characters. Having 2 characters touch helps to create a more genuine, sincere scene.
All right, Winston. I gotta practice now, kitty. Oh, you want to practice too? You and me together will be forever, you'll see. We two can be good company, you and me.
Disney's next film, The Little Mermaid, saw Henn co-supervising Ariel with Glenn Keane. Sound familiar? Well, you can learn more about him here. While Glenn handled most of Ariel's more emotional scenes, Henn handled scenes that saw the mermaid as more of a teenager. Continuing with Grason Ponti, who has an amazing blog that you can check out in the description, he writes, in terms of characterization, there are some notable differences between his mermaid and Keane's mermaid. While Glenn Keane gave Ariel a burning, dynamic desire to become a human and strong, mature emotion of love towards Eric, to Ariel, Mark took a little more of a relaxed approach to the character and tried to put the problems and emotions of a teenage girl in her to make her and her story believable. While Keane spent a lot of time dealing with the more powerful, intensely emotional scenes, such as Part of Your World, Henn animated a lot of the scenes where Ariel doesn't have a voice, such as the one where she's having dinner with Eric and Grimsby, as well as her first scene at the beginning of the film with Flounder, animated by the great Barry Temple. The touching scene where she sees Eric for the first time, the section where she is debating whether or not he loves her, and the final kiss at the end. While most animators show strong, compelling emotions through broad action or bold work that communicates the feeling very effectively and strongly, Henn communicates equally powerful emotions but does so through subtle expressions and gentle touches. Henn has so many more contributions to the Disney family. He is the longest continuously employed artist at the Disney Studios. He is still working on Disney films to this day. There's still plenty more to talk about, but as a sneak peek to the next episode, which will come relatively soon, here is a very famous scene that he was responsible for. Get the cat out of here! Sorry about that. Here it is.
I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. Tell me, princess, now when did you last let your heart decide?
In a previous episode, which you can watch right here, we talked about how Mark was born in 1958 in Dayton, Ohio. He went to Cal Arts and was hired by Disney in 1980. Where he eventually animated Mickey in Mickey's Christmas Carol, Basil, Dr. Dawson, and Olivia in The Great Mouse Detective, Oliver and Dodger in Oliver and Company, and Ariel in The Little Mermaid. In 1989, the very same year that The Little Mermaid was released, a huge change occurred in Mark Henn's career. He moved to Florida to be part of the nucleus of the staff being started at a small Disney animation studio in Orlando, Florida at MGM. Which is a very busy year, very busy year. I get tired after doing laundry, so I can't even imagine. When it was first announced that they were going to open a small animation studio down there, I wasn't crazy about the idea. Henn remembers. I thought it wasn't a good idea, that it would dilute the specialness of the Burbank studio. So I wasn't very excited about it. But I spent a lot of time thinking about it. Then I thought if they feel they need this studio in Florida, then it needs to be at the same quality and ideals of the Burbank studio. I realized after a year that instead of complaining about it, I should do something about it. So I decided I'd like to go down and make sure that this studio that had the Disney name on it is a quality Disney studio. So I went down. At the beginning, there was only a whopping 78 employees at the Disney studio, and it was primarily intended to do shorts and Mickey Mouse featurettes. But the studio's talent hit off so well and did such high quality work that they were given pieces of the features to do not long after. The first feature the team worked on was The Rescuers Down Under, where Mark personally worked on the main characters Bernard and Bianca.
Bernard is so endearing and so heroic in this film. He's the underdog. He's really our little link with the audience in this story. Bianca is the leader of the little duo, the rescue team, but Bernard's the one you link with because you know that he's been trying to propose to Bianca and he keeps getting put off for some reason or other, so you're rooting for him.
Miss Bianca, I would be most honored if...
On Beauty and the Beast, Mark was the supervising animator of Belle for the Florida studio, even though he actually did more footage than the California supervisor, James Baxter, who you can learn more about right here. At that time, Baxter was only 23 years old, and he was sick for a lot of the production, giving the other animators a lot of key scenes. Among Henn's scenes were the one where Belle meets Beast for the first time.
Take me instead.
You would take his place?
Belle, no! You don't know what you're doing!
If I did, would you let him go?
Yes. But you must promise to stay here forever.
Come into the light.
Also, the scene where she bandages the Beast's arm.
Just hold still.
That hurts!
If you'd hold still, it wouldn't hurt as much.
Well, if you hadn't have run away, this wouldn't have happened.
If you hadn't frightened me, I wouldn't have run away.
Well, you shouldn't have been in the West Wing!
Well, you should learn to control your temper.
And her sneaking into the West Wing, the Something There sequence, and all of her in the Beast's death and resurrection scene.
Of course I came back. I couldn't let them... Oh, this is all my fault. If only I'd gotten here sooner.
Maybe it's better. It's better this way.
Don't talk like that. You'll be all right. We're together now. Everything's going to be fine. You'll see.
And at least I got to see you one last time.
Again, a very busy man. Very busy man.
Busy, busy, busy.
One thing that's interesting is that even though James was supervising the character and was more prevalent in designing Belle, most of the major character arcs and emotional acting scenes were done by Mark. This is another good contrast because he gives a warm, sincere side to Belle, while James makes her more sophisticated and uptight, making her character believable and rich. We see the sophisticated version at the beginning of the film, showing us that this girl is older and more independent than heroines such as Ariel. But through these crucial character arc scenes, we begin to see her sweet and sensitive side, making us believe that she really could, possibly, maybe, fall in love with the Beast. Also, at Florida, Henn was given an excellent assistant by the name of Dan Gracie, who worked as his right-hand man for all of his years at the Florida studio. Gracie is one of the greatest assistants in Disney history and was known for his specialization in female characters. For Aladdin, Mark supervised and animated almost all of Jasmine.
Jasmine was my third leading lady that I had the privilege to do for our films. Before that, I got to do Belle for Beauty and the Beast, and before that, Ariel for The Little Mermaid. But the struggle that I had was trying to find something new and fresh. I had a lot of other pictures of models and exotic looking women up, just trying to understand what it is that, you know, makes for that particular look. And I got thinking about how old Jasmine is and everything else, and I realized, wait a minute, I had a picture in my wallet. So I reached in and pulled that out and said, yeah, my younger sister, you know, definitely has a lot of the qualities and things that I was looking for to put into Jasmine's physical makeup.
I wondered why he would use such an old picture of mine, and I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple months later I was talking with him and he said, my boss really likes the character I made out of your picture, and it's a go.
I remember a lot of the guys around the studio even were kind of like going, gee, is your sister married? I'd kind of like to meet your sister.
So then about 9 months later, a year later, I went to the studios in Florida for a visit, and people just kept coming by and saying, hey, Jasmine, or how are you today, Jasmine?
What was fun is the following Halloween, my sister's a seamstress. She could sew very well.
I like to sew my kids' Halloween costumes, and it just happened to be that the year the movie came out. So I thought, well, I'll make my son an Aladdin outfit, I'll make my daughter a Jasmine outfit, and I'll make myself one too.
We received this little package from her in the mail, and I opened it up, and here's this wonderful picture of her. It was really neat because it was Jasmine in the flesh. It really is.
My kids are now teenagers. So when the movie came out, they were, I believe, 3 and 5. And they would go to their preschool and their school and say, my mommy's Princess Jasmine. And none of their friends believed them. And if they would come over to our house, they would ask, are you really Princess Jasmine? And I would laugh and say, yes, my picture was used for that. And they think it's pretty neat.
One brilliant acting choice that Henn made on the character is that he made her more contained in her acting than the other characters, and communicated her feelings and emotions through these sort of soft, subtle actions, like her eyes, facial expressions, posture, and walks. So these actions and gestures have kind of a stronger meaning, a skill I, too, have been developing. I might need a little more work. This was also a good contrast to most of the other characters that were broader and more cartoony in action, or in the case of Jafar, very reserved. There are 3 Mark Henn scenes that really stick out. One where she's sitting by the fountain right at the beginning. It really has a great use of light, soft but powerful touches, and that subtle body posture.
Father, Raja was just playing with him. Weren't you, Raja? You were just playing with that overdressed, self-absorbed Prince Ahmed, weren't you?
Also the scene where she confronts Jafar, and this shows how strong and passionate she can be.
The guards just took a boy from the market, on your orders.
Oh, your father has charged me with keeping peace in Agrabah. The boy was a criminal.
What was his crime?
I can't breathe. Jafar! Why, kidnapping the princess, of course.
He didn't kidnap me, I ran away.
Oh, dear.
Last is the whole new world sequence where Mark for Mark to animate the cocky and idealistic but innocent and outgoing young Simba in The Lion King. Lion King was a great opportunity because I got a chance to do something other than a girl, which was a nice change, he said in an interview. Initially, I campaigned hard and asked several times to possibly do Scar, to do a villain, because that was something completely different. But Don Hahn said to me, I know you're interested in doing Scar, but the whole picture really kind of needs to hinge on Simba. So knowing that they need me to work on Simba like that, it was a challenge I happily took. Many believe that The Lion King is the best work Henn has done so far in his Disney career, because it is the one where he really took his acting skills to the next level.
Dad? Dad, come on. You gotta get up. Dad. We gotta go home. Help!
The scenes of young Simba are very crucial to making the film work, because they have to set in place the emotions and situations that lead to the challenges and insecurities he has to deal with for the rest of the film, as well as make us sympathize with the character, which can be hard because, he's a lion. We all knew what the story was and what Simba was going through, Mark has said, but ultimately I just wanted to make him believable as this young, maybe a little cocky, confident character at the beginning. I just wanted to make him believable so that people could identify with him.
Hey, Nala. Hi, Simba. Come on, I just heard about this great place. Simba, I'm kind of in the middle of a bath.
And it's time for yours.
Mom! Mom, you're messing up my mane. Okay, I'm clean. Can we go now? So where are we going? It better not be any place dumb. No, it's really cool.
So where is this really cool place?
Oh. Around the water hole. The water hole? What's so great about the water hole? We'll show you when we get there. Oh. Mom, can I go with Simba?
What do you think, Sarabi?
Well...
Please?
It's all right with me.
Yeah!
As long as Zazu goes with you.
No, not Zazu.
As a young lion, Simba has more awkward and less smooth walks and movements than he does as an adult, communicating with the audience his insecurities and his desire to just be bigger. All of Mark's scenes in the film are really intuitive. Simba's struggles, emotions, and desire to become powerful are all feelings that we can relate to. And now we'll stop. Right in the middle of Mark's very, very vast career. But worry not, for we will return. So until then, here's a little sneak peek to his next episode.
When will my reflection show
before we start, don't forget to check out our Patreon, our Discord, and of course, like and subscribe. In the 2 previous episodes, which you can watch right here, we mentioned that Mark was born in Dayton, Ohio. He went to Cal Arts and was hired by Disney in 1980, where he eventually animated a whole bunch of main characters, including Mickey, Basil, Dr. Dawson, Olivia, Oliver, Dodger, Ariel, Roger Rabbit, Bernard, Bianca, Belle, Jasmine, and Simba. And there's more, which is what we will be covering today. So let's get started where we left off and where the United States started, with Pocahontas. Mark was first actually assigned to Mulan, where he began to do some pre-production work, drawing concept art for the film. However, since the project wasn't quite ready, he moved on to animate a ton of scenes of Pocahontas, following the instructions and orders of Glenn Keane. One of his most difficult scenes didn't make it into the movie.
So I did a scene where it was actually in the song that was cut, which was the love song between Pocahontas and John Smith, where he's tied up in the wigwam. And it's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful song. Eventually, they put it back in for, I think, a special edition.
Why'd they cut it? Was it just because it was too long?
When they had a preview audience, the audience giggled. And that, to Jeffrey, was death. So they cut it out and edited it. But then they put it back in later. But it's If I Never Knew You.
If I never held you, I would never have a clue how at last I'd find in you the missing part of me.
So I had to do a scene where John Pomeroy did John Smith, and I was animating Pocahontas, and she's just, she's curled up to him. He's tied up to a pole, and he's singing, pouring his heart out, and she's just looking at him lovingly, and, they're getting really close, like, are they going to kiss? Are they not going to kiss? I mean, it was just, and I had to redo that scene several times. I remember Glenn finally told me, he said, this is one that Eric Goldberg, who was the co-director, he said, he's taking this one to bed with him every time. He said, this one's really important to him. So, and I had to redo it a couple of times to finally get it just right. And so those kind of scenes are.
And then it was cut.
And then it got cut.
And then it got cut, right.
Yeah.
Once Mulan was ready for animation, Henn was again cast as the leading character.
Well, Mark was so fast that on Mulan, he had the main character. We gave him the main character, Mulan, because we knew that there was only one animator that could, do a great job, bring out a great performance with Mulan, and really sell her as the lead character. We knew Mark would fit that bill. But she also had the most footage of a Disney. She had a lot of screen time in the movie. Yeah. And so she had probably had the most footage of most any heroine at that time in any feature. So he became the Mulan animator, but while he was actually doing a Mulan and also supervising, I don't know, you had a team of how many animators on Mulan?
I usually didn't have very big crews. I had maybe 4, 5, 6 at tops.
Well, he didn't need a big crew because he was like 4, 5, 6 tops himself. But he was supervising his crew of animators, and then we got into a snag where we were having a problem with the mother and father, Fa Li and Fa Zhu, who are the mothers to Mulan. And we asked Mark, thinking that he was going to tell us no, which he never does when it comes to getting more scenes. But we asked him, do you think you could do the parents of Mulan also? And so he did
them. Well, it was
them.
the dad. It was primarily the dad, yeah.
Fa Zhu. He did most of the dad.
Ruben and Kino did the mom, Tony.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah. All right. I just directed the movie. I don't remember it. Well, and so on Mulan, Mark got to do the in sequence. If you remember when Mulan, she's won the war, she's been given all these great accolades by the emperor. She comes home and her father is sitting there on the bench, and it's that, oh man, it gets me every time I see it. I'm sure it does you too.
The greatest gift and honor is having you for a daughter. I've missed you so.
I've missed you too, Baba.
So he played both parts. He got to play both parts and do both characters, which at the time, and we should have said this beforehand, but at the time in Disney tradition, an animator's cast onto a character, and they really just did that character. And it's very rare that an animator would,
for the most part,
would do that character and then the other characters around.
Well, unless you're Mark Henn, in which case they'll go, just do everything in the scene.
The relationship between Mulan and her father is the heart of this movie, and is one of the things that sets it apart from other classic Disney films. I mean, did Snow White even have a dad? Henn's Mulan performance shows that he put a great deal of inner emotional strength and soul into his character. He also used the emotions he had towards being a father to his own daughter and ended up animating one of the strongest and most compelling character relationships in Disney film to date.
What makes Mulan different from your other actresses?
I would say one of the things, if not the biggest thing, was Mulan's sense of humor.
Fulfill your duties calmly and respectfully. Reflect before you snack. Act. This shall bring you honor and glory.
As I think back to, over the years in the films that I've worked on, I mean, various ones, and probably the ones that were arguably the most successful were the ones that there was either something to prove as a group. Mulan and Case in Point, that was our first feature film coming out of the Florida unit.
Right.
And I had been here and then went down to Florida as kind of a part of a nucleus of experienced artists that helped build the crew down there. And it was evident from right away from the beginning that we've got something really special here. We've got some amazingly talented people, fresh to the industry, fresh to animation, that we had a chance to teach and kind of pass that legacy onto, and that we knew we could do a feature. We knew that was our kind of the goal. We weren't just going to be doing sequences or short films for the rest of our careers. We knew that we wanted to get in a place to do our own feature. Mm-hmm. So Mulan had that kind of drive and energy behind it.
After Mulan, Mark directed John Henry, a beautiful, stylized short which tells the story of the tall tale and exhibits the animator's love and passion for American history.
John, we're free. You don't have to do this.
Polly, if they steal our dreams, they put a chain round our souls. Somebody's got to stand tall. Believe in me.
It was around this time that the Disney studio was again in trouble. Pixar had been releasing hit after hit with their computer-generated movies, which meant Disney had some real competition.
You are a toy! You weren't the real Buzz Lightyear, you're an action figure! You are a child's plaything!
You are a sad, strange little man.
On Lilo and Stitch, Mark originally intended to supervise the Stitch character in Florida. However, he moved back to California in 1999, making him unable to be part of the official crew. He was able to animate the hula dance sequence in his Burbank office. For the next 4 years, Henn animated 4 characters in the box office flop and critically panned Home on the Range: Grace the Cow, Weasley, Rusty, and Pearl, whom he finished after Bruce Smith left the production. I mean, come on, it's not that bad.
You see, I'm your little the sweetest way of
Oh my. After Home on the Range, Mark Henn encountered another hard production, Meet the Robinsons, his first film in CG animation. Mark ended up struggling with the transition and found the assignment very difficult.
The transition to CG world was fast. The last hand-drawn film that the studio was planning to do was Home on the Range. And so I had come off of that. And so then I spent a year training, because at that point they were developing Chicken Little. And the writing was on the wall pretty much at that point. And it was literally, our world got turned upside down overnight. It was, from a spiritual point of view, from my worldview, it was very eye-opening, because I didn't realize how ingrained being at Disney and being a Disney animator the roots were so deep that when that got threatened, it really hurt. It really hurt. I remember I was, I had called a friend of mine, and I was just in tears, saying, I don't know what to do. This is all I know how to do.
Luckily, Henn was able to squeak by and animated some good scenes of the protagonist, Lewis. After Robinson's, he was farmed out to James Baxter Animation, where he animated Giselle, the princess in the first scene in Enchanted.
It was such a lovely dream. We were holding hands and dancing and...
And these for the eyes?
Blue. Oh, how did you know? And they sparkled just like his.
Soon after, the studio changed management, and Disney merged with Pixar. John Lasseter took the reins at the studio, and they were able to return to traditional animation. The Princess and the Frog was their first 2D project, for which Mark animated, can you guess? The beignets! Those sweet, delicious beignets. Oh. Excuse me, I mean the main character, Tiana. This was a huge project for him, so we'll be doing a mini episode in the future just on his contributions to Tiana. Honestly, we just can't get enough of that dreamboat, Mark Henn. Whew. Moving on. His next 2D animated film was Winnie the Pooh, for which he animated Pooh and Christopher Robin.
And now, I have a surprise for you, Pooh.
I do like surprises.
Okay, open your eyes.
Oh, they're open, Christopher.
No, silly. Put your arms down.
Oh.
Congratulations, Pooh. You win the grand prize.
Since Pooh, traditional animation at Disney had been reduced to shorts and small segments in movies. However, this was not the end of Mark's career.
But I fell into a new niche, which is what I'm doing now. I started on Frozen, where Chris Buck, of course, who was a 2D artist and animator.
He's one of the directors.
He's one of the co-directors on Frozen, and he and Jen approached me and said, we'd love, actually I think it was John Lasseter was involved too, because he went to Chris and says, are you guys getting any help? Something to that effect, meaning, help with working with a leading lady. So what I've been doing lately, my role is kind of on Frozen, on Big Hero, and now on Wreck-It Ralph 2. I'm kind of in that mentor, I call it the mentor coach resource. I'm kind of, because they have 1 or 2 heads of animation on these films, they have 4, 5, or 6 supervisors, and then there's me. So I have to be, I don't have quite the same authority. This started actually with Glenn back on Tangled. He was one of 3 of the head animators or supervising animators on Tangled. And so Glenn was able to sit in dailies and draw on a Cintiq, and he really, he did what he's always done as a supervising animator. It's just now he was drawing on a Cintiq, going over a CG artist scene, saying, pose it this way, it'll make it stronger. Do this expression, it'll make it stronger, and really pushing the CG artists to be better at the craft. And so the difference between his role and my role is that he could say, this is what I want to see in the movie, because he was one of 3, he and John Kars and Clay Cletus were the other 2 heads of animation.
Yeah.
Whereas my role is, I can't necessarily say this is what I want to see, but I can say, may I make a suggestion? I think this might be stronger if they did this, or this might be a better idea, or this might be...
And now we've gone full circle. You sound exactly like Eric Larson.
In a way, yeah, I'm kind of in that...
You've become the Eric Larson of
thankfully, I don't have quite the tummy that Eric Larson had, but...
well, you can work on that.
I'm working on it. I got some cookies over here.
Yeah, sure.
Mark is also doing work for the Disney parks, like firework projections or special effects around the park. For example, the mirror in the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. Both of which, and I am speaking frankly, are just so magical. He also works with pre-viz projects, helping visualize what things might look like before making costly rigs in the animation programs.
Well, for example, just on Moana, they called me. I got a call and said, come down to editorial. I said, all right, what's up? And they said, well, it isn't official yet, but we're trying to get Dwayne The Rock to do the voice of Maui.
And you're like, who's The Rock?
No, I knew who The Rock was.
Oh, you did? Okay. He's old school.
And so they asked me, they said, all right, but we haven't gotten him to sign yet, and he has, we're thinking about him, We've approached him, and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, so they said, we've got 2 weeks. We've cut together a bunch of audio from his wrestling days and just hobbled it together, and it kind of makes some sense. But they said, could you do a test so that we could help sell Dwayne to do the role? So he's going to be in like 2 weeks. I'm like, sure, okay, so I'll do that. So I went back and I animated the scene of, based on some early concept sketches of what Maui could look like. Not too dissimilar to the way he ended up. I didn't have to do all the tattoos, thankfully, on him. But so I did this test in about a week or so, and they used that to then when they had a meeting with Dwayne, and they showed him that as a vehicle to say, well, if you have any questions or any concerns, here's what you would sound like as a cartoon character. Here's what seeing your voice coming out of a cartoon character would look like. And it was a lot of fun. It was a really fun test.
Were you there when he saw it?
I wasn't. I was in the building, but I wasn't part of the meeting. But they came by later and said he loved it. He loved it, and he signed. So
Grason Ponti writes in his blog, style-wise, there is a very strong less is more tactic in Mark Henn's animation. He rarely uses broad action and shows his character's emotions through subtle, soft gestures and expressions. Touching and physical contact are also very important assets that Mark uses when he animates." Unquote. Henn's animation is very classic, and a lot of the warmth and sincerity of the old-time Disney animators is found in his work. His understanding is pretty organic, and his stuff also feels very natural. "I try to make my animation feel natural and not seem like it's taken from a book or formula," he has said. Mark has also been a wonderful mentor, especially at the Florida studio. Henn basically turned it from what would have been just a small satellite studio making shorts to a quality studio making feature films. The great subtleties, warmth, sincerity, and usage of classic Disney principles in Mark's animation have really influenced the studio forever. Only Ollie Johnston and arguably Eric Larson have ever animated as subtly as he does. Henn is a great company man, and I'm sure he will continue to be a top talent at the Disney studio as a phenomenal animator and giving mentor. And also, oh my goodness, just a heartthrob here at Discographies. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Don't forget to check out our Patreon and Discord, and click the thumbs up button below if you liked the video. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, subscribe and click the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.